The sky lit up over every major city on Earth. Strange ships hovered silently, their hulls shimmering with blue light. After decades of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, everyone had their answer. Captain John Miller stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, Earth's newest and most advanced spacecraft. His orders were simple: meet the aliens and establish peaceful contact. "Are you nervous, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Susan Harris, his second in command. "Only a fool wouldn't be," Miller replied, adjusting his uniform. "But we represent all of humanity today." The Horizon approached the massive alien mothership. It was 20 times larger than anything humans had ever built, with strange angles and glowing sections that seemed to shift and move. A voice came through their communication system, speaking perfect English. "Greetings, people of Earth. We are the Cyrillan Empire. We come in peace and friendship." 3 days later, Miller sat at a long table across from High Commander Zexnar, the leader of the Cyrillan delegation. Zexnar had blue skin with small scales that caught the light. His 4 eyes blinked at different times. "The Empire spans thousands of worlds," Zexnar explained. "We offer protection, technology, and trade. All we ask is that Earth joins as a protectorate." Earth's leaders agreed quickly. The deal seemed too good to be true: advanced medicine, faster than light travel technology, and protection from any threats in the galaxy. Miller felt uneasy. "They're giving us everything we want without asking for much in return," he told Harris as they walked through the Horizon's corridors. "I know," she replied. "That's why I've been monitoring their communications." Harris led Miller to her quarters and showed him what she'd found. She had managed to break the encryption on some Cyrillan transmissions. "They're not here to help us," she said. "Look at this." The translated messages revealed the truth. Earth was rich in rare minerals and biological diversity. The Cyrillans planned to extract these resources and eventually use humans as workers, or worse. "We need to tell everyone," Miller said. The next day, Miller presented the evidence to the Earth-Cyrillan Joint Council. The human representatives looked shocked. The Cyrillans did not. "This is unfortunate," Zexnar said calmly. "We had hoped for willing cooperation." The room's doors sealed shut. Miller reached for his communication device, but it was dead. "Your ship will be destroyed as a lesson," Zexnar continued. "The extraction will proceed as planned." Miller lunged across the table, but was thrown back by an invisible force. Zexnar smiled, revealing rows of sharp teeth. Alarms blared throughout the Horizon. Harris's voice came over the emergency channel. "Captain, they're boarding us. We're under attack." Miller and a few council members fought their way back to the ship. When they arrived, half the crew was already dead. "Get to the escape pods," Miller ordered. "Someone has to warn Earth." As the Horizon broke apart under Cyrillan weapons fire, 5 escape pods launched toward Earth. Only 3 would make it. From the small window of his pod, Miller watched his ship explode. The Cyrillan vessels moved into position around Earth, their weapons ready. On Earth, people still celebrated first contact, unaware of what was coming. But in a secure room deep beneath Washington, D.C., the 3 escape pods' distress signals were received. General Barbara Mitchell looked at the incoming data, and then at the room of stunned military leaders. "So," she said quietly, "this is how it begins." 50 years passed since the attack on the UES Horizon. To the Cyrillan Empire, Earth appeared broken and obedient. Humans worked in mines and factories, handed over resources, and bowed their heads when Cyrillan officials walked by. The aliens thought they had won. They were wrong. Deep beyond Neptune, hidden in the shadows of the solar system's edge, humanity built its revenge. Admiral Frank Ross stood on the observation deck of the secret shipyard, Olympus. Before him floated over 200 warships, each more powerful than anything Earth had shown the Cyrillans. "Status report," Ross said to the officer beside him. "The Phoenix fleet is at 87% completion, Admiral. The final weapons systems are being installed now." Ross nodded. He was 68 now, one of the few who remembered Earth before the Cyrillans. He had been a young lieutenant when the escape pods brought back the truth about the aliens. Now his hair was gray, but his resolve was stronger than ever. On the other side of the shipyard, Olivia Wright worked with her team on the newest ship engine. At 45, she was the best engineer humanity had. The Cyrillans had taught humanity some technology, thinking humans too simple to truly understand it. That was their mistake. "Try it now," Wright said to her assistant. The engine hummed to life, glowing with blue-white energy, but emitting no heat signature that Cyrillan sensors could detect. "Perfect," she smiled. "Install these in the next batch of fighters." Every day, the Cyrillans took resources from Earth. Every day, humans secretly sent a portion of those resources to the hidden shipyards. For 50 years, humanity had lived a double life. Alan Porter led the spy network that made it all possible. At 53, he had spent his entire adult life working against the Cyrillans. His agents were everywhere, working as servants in Cyrillan bases, as translators, as maintenance workers on their ships. "We found something interesting in their medical database," Porter told Ross and Wright during their weekly meeting. "It's about human DNA." He showed them the files his agents had stolen. The Cyrillans had discovered something they couldn't understand. Human neural patterns allowed for interfaces with technology in ways the aliens couldn't match. "They're trying to study it, but keeping it quiet from their leadership," Porter explained. "They're afraid of us." "As they should be," Ross said. "How's the progress on the neural pilots?" Wright pulled up a video showing humans in special suits, their minds directly controlling spacecraft through thought alone. "The squadron is ready. One human pilot can react 10 times faster than a Cyrillan crew." On Earth, things were getting worse. The Cyrillans had increased their demands, taking more resources, pushing humans harder. Reports came in of whole towns being emptied to work in new mining operations. "They're getting greedy," Porter said. "My sources say they're planning to start full planetary resource extraction within months. They'll strip the planet and leave it dead." Ross looked at the fleet through the window. Ships that represented 50 years of sacrifice, planning, and hope. "How much longer do we need?" he asked Wright. 2 weeks to finish the last wave of ships," she replied. "We don't have 2 weeks," Porter said, showing them new intelligence. "They're starting with Mars first. Our colony there, 50,000 people." Ross was silent for a long moment. Then he pressed a button on his desk. "This is Admiral Ross. All ships prepare for immediate deployment. Begin Phase 1 of the Phoenix Protocol." Throughout the hidden base, alarms sounded. Men and women who had trained their whole lives for this moment rushed to their stations. The time for hiding was over. The red dust of Mars blew across empty streets, where a thriving colony of 50,000 people once stood. Only ruins remained. Cyrillan ships hovered above the surface, massive drills extending from their undersides, boring deep into the planet. On Earth, screens in every home showed the same message: temporary evacuation of Mars colony for safety upgrades. It was a lie, and most people knew it, but they kept their heads down and their thoughts hidden. In the underground war room beneath what used to be Chicago, the Earth Defense Council watched real footage smuggled from Mars. Bodies lay in streets, buildings burned. Cyrillan soldiers moved through the colony, taking anything valuable. "They didn't even warn them," said President William Carter, his face pale. "They just started killing." Admiral Frank Ross nodded grimly. "This is just the beginning. Earth is next." Above them, the official Earth government prepared to make a public statement. They would beg the Cyrillan Empire for mercy, promise greater cooperation, offer more resources. It was all part of the plan. Keep the Cyrillans thinking humans were weak and scared while the real response prepared. Commander Kate Nelson led her rescue team toward Mars in a ship disguised as a Cyrillan supply vessel. At 36, she was one of the best pilots in the secret fleet. Her mission: find survivors, and bring them back. Approaching Mars orbit, her navigator said, "Cerulean ships are hailing us." Nelson took a deep breath. "Send the clearance codes." For a tense minute, everyone waited. Then, "We're cleared to land near Mining Sector 7. As soon as they landed, Nelson's team moved quickly. They wore cerulean environment suits as disguises, allowing them to move through the ruins of the colony. What they found made even these hardened soldiers sick. The ceruleans hadn't just killed, they had experimented on some colonists, testing how much humans could endure. "Over here," called one of her team. "We've got survivors." In a sealed basement shelter, 300 colonists huddled together, mostly women and children. A man stepped forward, his arm in a makeshift sling. "Are you really human?" he asked, suspicious after days of cerulean tricks. Nelson removed her helmet. "We're getting you out of here, all of you." Back on Earth, riots broke out in major cities. People attacked cerulean outposts with whatever weapons they could find, mostly just rocks and homemade explosives. It looked like chaos, but it was carefully organized by Porter's agents. Every riot had a purpose: to distract the ceruleans from noticing certain movements, to test their response times, to see which weapons they used. High Commander Vexor, who had replaced Zexanar as Earth's overseer, watched the riots with contempt from his tower in what used to be New York. "Increase pacification measures," he ordered, "and begin deploying the terraforming equipment. It's time to make this planet properly habitable for real people." The terraforming equipment would change Earth's atmosphere to contain more methane. Perfect for ceruleans, deadly for humans. They had always planned to cleanse the planet of its native life once the resources were extracted. As cerulean ships began moving the huge atmospheric processors into position around Earth, Admiral Ross received word that Nelson's rescue mission had succeeded. It was the final piece he was waiting for. Ross looked at the men and women around him: generals, engineers, pilots, soldiers. For 50 years they had lived with the shame of defeat, the pain of occupation. Now, finally, they would show the ceruleans who they were really dealing with. "Send the signal," Ross ordered. "Operation Thunderbolt is a go." Throughout the solar system, hidden human ships powered up their engines. The fight for Earth had begun. The cerulean commander on Titan never saw it coming. One moment, his base was operating normally. The next, alarms blared as 5 human warships appeared from nowhere, their hulls gleaming black against the orange haze of Saturn's largest moon. Captain Eric Peterson stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, the lead ship of Battle Group Alpha. After years of training in simulators, this was his first real command. His hands didn't shake, his voice didn't waver. "All ships, open fire on designated targets. Marines prepare for ground assault." The human ships unleashed weapons the ceruleans had never seen before. Beams of concentrated energy sliced through cerulean defenses like they were made of paper. The base's shields, designed to withstand attacks from known weapons, failed within minutes. "Sir, enemy communications are trying to call for help," reported Peterson's communications officer. "Let them," Peterson replied with a grim smile. "By the time help arrives, we'll be long gone." Marine dropships launched from the UES Defiant, carrying soldiers in powered armor suits. These weren't the poorly equipped rebels the ceruleans had faced on Earth. These were elite troops with 50 years of preparation behind them. On the base, cerulean soldiers rushed to defensive positions, but they were confused and disorganized. They had never expected humans to have such technology, such training, such fury. Sergeant Noah Bell led the first squad into the base's command center. His powered armor made him twice as tall as the average cerulean, and their weapons barely scratched its surface. "Secure the area," he ordered his team. "Find the commander." They found Regional Commander Vexor hiding in a secure room. When human Marines broke down the door, he raised his hands in surrender. "This is impossible," he said, his 4 eyes wide with shock. "Humans don't have this technology." "Surprise," Bell said, before stunning him. While Battle Group Alpha struck Titan, Colonel Lisa Morgan led Battle Group Bravo to Jupiter. The massive gas giant had been turned into a refueling station for the Cyrillian fleet, with orbital platforms extracting hydrogen from the planet's atmosphere. Morgan's ships appeared behind Jupiter's largest moon, Ganymede, using it to mask their approach. When they emerged, the Cyrillian workers on the platforms couldn't believe what they were seeing. "This is Colonel Lisa Morgan of the United Earth Defense Force. She broadcast on all frequencies. Surrender your stations or be destroyed." Half of the platforms surrendered immediately. The other half tried to fight or call for help. Within an hour, all of Jupiter's orbital facilities were under human control. Admiral Ross watched the battle reports come in from his command ship near Neptune. So far, the plan was working perfectly. The Cyrillian Empire had spread its forces throughout the solar system, never expecting a coordinated attack. "Admiral," his tactical officer called out, "Cyrillian reinforcements are arriving near Saturn." Ross had been waiting for this. "Signal Captain Peterson to withdraw from Titan. Begin Phase 2. The Cyrillian reinforcement fleet, consisting of 12 warships, arrived at Saturn, expecting to find damaged human vessels they could easily destroy. Instead, they found nothing. The human ships had vanished. Confused, the Cyrillian commander ordered his ships to spread out and search Saturn's rings for hidden enemies. It was exactly what Ross had planned. As the Cyrillian ships moved into the rings, 50 human fighters launched from hiding places within the ice and rock. Each fighter was piloted by a neural interface, allowing the human pilot to react with impossible speed. The Cyrillian ships, spread too thin and unprepared for the ferocity of the attack, never stood a chance. Within 20 minutes, all 12 were disabled or destroyed. For the first time in 50 years, the outer solar system belonged to humanity again. And this was just the beginning. Emperor Narzoth smashed his fist against the holographic display, shattering the image of the solar system. The throne room fell silent as court officials and military leaders held their breath. In 300 years of ruling the Cyrillian Empire, Narzoth had never lost a world. Now, reports showed that primitive humans had taken back half their system in less than a day. "Impossible," he hissed, his 4 eyes narrowing to slits. "They are animals. Workers. How did this happen?" Grand Admiral Kexmar stepped forward, his scaled skin pale with fear. "The humans appear to have been deceiving us, Your Majesty. They have ships we've never seen before, weapons that can penetrate our best shields." "Then send the Imperial Armada," Narzoth said, his voice dangerously quiet. "All of it. I want Earth burned to ash." Across the Empire, the news spread quickly. The humans, a species considered barely worth noticing, had somehow defeated Cyrillian forces and captured a regional commander. Many found it funny. Some found it concerning. But all watched with interest to see what would happen next. Lieutenant Paul Davis piloted his small scout ship through enemy territory. His mission was simple but dangerous: intercept Cyrillian communications and find out when the Imperial Armada would arrive. What he didn't expect was to capture an entire battle plan. "This can't be right," Davis said as he looked at the data his systems had pulled from a passing Cyrillian command ship. "They're sending everything they have. Over 500 warships." His co-pilot, Maria Green, looked at the tactical display with wide eyes. "We need to get this back to Admiral Ross immediately." As they turned their ship around, a Cyrillian patrol spotted them. 3 enemy fighters closed in fast. "We can't outrun them," Green said. Davis smiled grimly. "We don't need to outrun them. We just need them to not catch us." He activated the ship's newest technology, a system that could send false sensor readings to Cyrillian ships. Suddenly, to the Cyrillian pilots, it appeared that the human vessel had exploded. As the Cyrillian ships turned away, Davis and Green plotted a course back to Earth at full speed. In the war room beneath Chicago, Earth's leaders argued about what to do next. The early victories had given them control of the outer system, But now they faced the full might of an empire that controlled thousands of worlds. "We should hold our position and fortify what we have," insisted General Barbara Mitchell, pointing at the map. "The Jupiter and Saturn defensive lines are strong." Admiral Ross shook his head. "If we give them time to bring their full forces, they'll overwhelm us with numbers. We need to push outward now." The argument was interrupted when President Carter stood up. "The people need to know," he said firmly. "For 50 years, we've kept them in the dark. It's time to tell everyone what we've been doing, what we've built." That night, all across Earth, hidden transmitters activated. The truth was broadcast to every home, every shelter, every work camp. People saw the ships humanity had built, the victories already won, the plans for freedom. In Cerulean holding cells throughout Earth, guards watched nervously as humans stopped working, stopped cowering, and simply looked up at them with new eyes. On a Cerulean prison ship orbiting Earth, the captured regional commander Vexor was being questioned by human intelligence agents. "Your empire is not as strong as you think," Vexor said, surprising his interrogators. "Many species chafe under Cerulean rule. The Proxians, the Vexari, the Thuleri. They might join your fight if you can prove you can win." Lieutenant Alan Porter recorded every word. "This information could change everything. The Emperor has sent the Imperial Armada," Vexor continued, "but he has emptied the home systems to do it. He fears you more than he will admit." As the Imperial Armada approached the edge of the solar system, humanity prepared for the greatest battle in its history. The Imperial Armada appeared at the edge of the solar system like a storm of metal and light. 500 warships, each larger than anything humanity had ever built, moved in perfect formation toward Earth. At their center was the Emperor's Fist, a dreadnought so massive it could shatter planets. On the bridge of the UES Valiant, Admiral Ross watched the enemy approach. His fleet seemed small in comparison, just over 200 ships spread throughout the system. "They're exactly where we expected," said his tactical officer. "Moving past Pluto now." Ross nodded. "Send the signal to Captain Jackson." "It's time." Captain Daniel Jackson received the message aboard the UES Shadow, a special stealth ship designed for one purpose. With him was a team of engineers and the most important weapon humanity had created, the quantum cascade array. "Begin approach," Jackson ordered. "Keep us in the shadow of their formation." The shadow slipped between enemy ships, its advanced cloaking technology making it invisible to Cerulean sensors. The plan was simple but dangerous. Get close enough to the Emperor's Fist to deploy the array. On Earth, people watched the approaching battle through public screens. No more lies, no more hiding. Everyone knew what was at stake. The Cerulean Fleet Commander, Supreme War Leader Dexnar, was confident of victory. Humans had shown surprising strength, but nothing could stand against the Imperial Armada. "Humans of Earth," he broadcast across all frequencies, "your rebellion ends today. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." The only response came from Ross. "We will not bow. We will not break. Come and find out what humans are truly capable of." The first shots of the battle came as the Cerulean fleet approached Neptune. Human ships hiding in the planet's atmosphere launched a surprise attack, damaging several enemy vessels before retreating. "A desperate move," Dexnar laughed. "Chase them down." It was exactly what Ross wanted. As Cerulean ships broke formation to pursue, they exposed weaknesses in their defense pattern. But the Empire's forces were still overwhelming. They pushed through Neptune's defenses, destroying 3 human outposts on Triton. Sergeant Laura Bell and her Marine unit were stationed there. "We can't hold them off much longer," she reported as her position was bombarded. "Just a little longer," Ross replied. "Every minute you buy us matters." Bell looked at her fellow Marines. "You heard the Admiral. Let's show these 4-eyed lizards how humans fight." With their base crumbling around them, Bell's Marines held off waves of Cerulean troops. None of them would survive, but their sacrifice would not be in vain. As the battle raged near Neptune, Jackson's stealth ship reached its target. The shadow hovered less than a mile from the Emperor's fist, completely undetected. "Prepare to deploy the array," Jackson ordered. Engineer Olivia Wright, who had designed the device, made final adjustments. "Ready, Captain." The quantum cascade array was the result of 50 years of research. Built from technology, the Ceruleans thought humans were too simple to understand. Once activated, it would generate a field that disabled Cerulean shields and disrupted their weapon systems. "Deploy now," Jackson said. The moment the array activated, every Cerulean ship in the fleet suddenly lost shields. Weapon systems failed. Communications went silent. Admiral Ross had been waiting for this moment. He gave the order that would change everything. "All ships, execute slingshot maneuver now." The human fleet, which had appeared scattered and defensive, suddenly moved in perfect coordination. Using the sun's gravity, they slingshot around it at incredible speed, appearing behind the Cerulean fleet. Dexnar watched in horror as his unshielded ships faced the full force of the human attack. Impossible. For the first time in 300 years, the Imperial Armada began to retreat. The skies above Jupiter glowed with fire as the remains of the once mighty Imperial Armada made their last stand. What had begun as 500 warships was now less than 50, surrounded by the human fleet that grew stronger with each passing hour. On the bridge of the UES Defiant, Admiral Ross received the message he had been waiting for. Supreme War Leader Dexnar requests to discuss terms of surrender. A hush fell over the bridge. After 50 years of occupation, after countless deaths, victory was finally within reach. "Open a channel," Ross ordered. Dexnar's face appeared on the main screen, his once proud features now haggard with defeat. "The Imperial Armada surrenders to Earth forces," he said, each word clearly painful. "We request safe passage for our remaining ships to return to Cerulean space." Ross looked at the faces of his crew, men and women who had sacrificed everything for this moment. "Your request is granted on one condition. Emperor Narzoth must acknowledge humanity as a sovereign power, free from all claims of the Cerulean Empire." Dexnar hesitated, then nodded. "It will be done." The news spread across Earth and throughout the solar system. People who had lived their entire lives under Cerulean rule poured into streets, embracing strangers, weeping with joy. The occupation was over. But victory brought new challenges. President Carter and Admiral Ross met with Earth's remaining leaders to discuss the future. "We've won our freedom," Carter said, "but the Ceruleans still control most of the galaxy. They'll be back someday, with an even larger force." Ross nodded. "Which is why we can't stop now. We need allies." As if answering his words, a communication came in from deep space. It wasn't from the retreating Ceruleans, but from somewhere else entirely. "This is Ambassador Kala of the Proxian Confederation," said a voice, speaking perfect English. "We have been watching your victory against the Empire with great interest. Perhaps it is time we talked." Over the next week, representatives from 7 different species made contact with Earth. All had been conquered by the Cerulean Empire, all had been watching humanity's rebellion, and all wanted to form alliances. 1 month after the Battle of Jupiter, a historic meeting took place. In the same location where the UES Horizon had been destroyed 50 years earlier, a new ship hovered. Aboard was Fleet Commander Ryan Miller, son of Captain John Miller, who had died in the Empire's first attack. Ryan stood tall as Emperor Narzoth's hologram appeared before him. The Emperor, speaking from his throne world light years away, couldn't hide his anger. "The Cerulean Empire recognizes Earth and its colonies as a sovereign power," Narzoth said, reading from a prepared statement. "We withdraw all claims to the Sol system and establish a border at Proxima Centauri." When the transmission ended, cheers erupted throughout the ship. But Ryan remained silent, thinking of his father and all those who hadn't lived to see this day. Admiral Ross joined him at the viewport, looking out at the stars. "Your father would be proud," he said quietly. "What happens now?" Ryan asked. Ross gestured to a star map, showing not just Earth's solar system, but dozens of other systems where newly allied species lived. Now we build the Sol Confederacy, a union of free worlds that will stand against the Empire. On Earth, reconstruction had already begun. Cerulean technology was being repurposed to heal the damage done to the planet. Children who had never known freedom played in parks that had once been work camps. But in shipyards throughout the system, new vessels were being built. Larger, stronger, designed for deep space exploration, and, if necessary, war. The Imperial Armada had retreated beyond Proxima Centauri, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had won its freedom. Now it would help others win theirs. In his private quarters, Admiral Ross looked at an old photo of Earth taken before the Ceruleans came. He had fought for 50 years to see his home free again. Now he had a new mission. "We're coming," he whispered to the stars beyond the solar system. "And this time, we won't be alone."